Hello, podcast listeners. We know podcasts are a great way to catch up on a program that you may have missed on KSJE, and it's provided as a free service of this radio station. But you know, KSJE is now listener-supported, and so while you enjoy this podcast, we hope that you'll also take some time to join KSJE. Become a member today. It's quite easy to do. Just go to our website at ksje.com/support and pick the level of support that best matches your budget. Thanks again for listening. Here's your podcast. KSJE is supported by San Juan Regional Medical Center, whose vision is to deliver world-class care, making life better for the communities they are privileged to serve. Offering a comprehensive range of inpatient, outpatient, and emergency care services so residents can live life better here. San Juan Regional Medical Center, community-owned and operated, here for you. And back in Studio A this morning with my guest, as I mentioned, back for her regular visit with me, Dr. Kim Mizell, the Superintendent of Schools with the Bloomfield School District. How could I forget? My apologies, but nice to have you here.
It's nice to be here. Thank you.
And things are moving quite along in the Bloomfield School District. I know you are anxiously watching the school board as they are searching for who will replace you because you have a retirement plan.
Yes, I do, and I'm looking forward to that.
At the end of the school year, more or less, right? Or the fiscal year? Mm-hmm. That's kind of the plan. And so you were telling me before we came on the air this morning that the board has, or the committee, is it the board or a committee of the board?
The board has selected the top 3 candidates.
Top 3. Mm-hmm. And we can announce who they are?
Yes.
Okay.
I believe so.
Not secret?
No,
okay.
No,
some names we might recognize, probably.
Yes,
Go ahead.
Kevin Summers and James Olivas and Rebecca Benedict. And Kevin Summers, the Aztec superintendent, and then James Olivas is my operations director, and Rebecca Bennett, okay. Is from CCSD.
Okay.
She's an assistant superintendent there.
Got you. Very good. And if I remember correctly, didn't Mr. Summers work for your district before Aztec snatched him away to be their superintendent?
He did. He was in the curriculum and instruction director, and did a good job. And so he's very familiar with Bloomfield and its systems. And so there's 3 very good candidates.
Sounds like it. And so the timeline, I guess, is for the board to talk to all 3 of these finalists now, sometime in the next maybe 30, 45 days?
I believe March 16th they will do interviews and make a decision. So it's coming up pretty quick. So,
okay.
Yeah.
And so hopefully you will be back to let us know who they have chosen and maybe bring the new superintendent with you on one of your other visits later on this year. Yeah. So that would be great. Well, good luck, and I know you are looking forward to your retirement, but I don't think you're going to stay at home for very long. Probably you have some other things up your sleeve, perhaps.
Well, I'm going to enjoy some time, to travel, and my daughter's getting married this summer, so we're in the thralls of wedding plans, and I'm in conversation with a couple of organizations for different part-time work. I don't, really want to enjoy my retirement too. So, but I'm looking forward to that time.
Very good. Well, congratulations. Well deserved. And we've really appreciated, of course, having you here and your leadership and guidance of Bloomfield Schools, of which you're not done yet. And so I don't want to No,
I'm still working.
Yes, definitely, for sure. One of the things I wanted to ask you about is you had a pretty special visitor to the Bloomfield School District since we last spoke. None other than famous actress Jennifer Garner was at Bloomfield Schools.
Yes. She is kind of she is the spokesperson, one of the spokespersons for Save the Children, and we are partners with Save the Children Foundation, where they provide reading materials and basic need stuff for our resource center. And then also they provide interventionists at the schools for reading. And so we've had a wonderful partnership, and she came and visited Central Primary, and it was such a joy to see her and Mark Schreiber, and he's a Kennedy. And they
Another worker with Save the Children,
Yes,
right? I mean, he
yes.
does a lot of
He's
work
one
with
of the-
them.
He's one of the co-founders
That's
of
what
it.
I thought,
And yeah,
right.
he's they were both really gracious people, and I was very impressed with Jennifer. She took notes, she wrote everything down. She's very knowledgeable about education, and she's a big supporter of literacy and supporting families, and she comes from a rural community herself, which I didn't know her history. And actually, she has family in Clovis and Portales. So
How about that?
she's a New Mexico-based type person. So it was neat to meet her, and she's a beautiful person.
Very nice. I was
very-
going to ask you maybe why she selected Bloomfield to come and visit, but if she has some New Mexico roots, because I know she made a trip to Santa Fe while she was here too.
Oh yeah, she was I was at the legislative session, and she was in the House and in the Senate, and pushing for support for schools and funding to support some of the needs of what's going on out in the communities, and especially rural communities. Like 69 districts in the state of New Mexico are rural districts, and we tend to not get as much focus because we don't have for example, the Rio Grande corridor, the voting power.
Right, sure.
And so it's sometimes we have to really fight for what we get. So
Nice to have someone of her stature maybe
wonderful
doing that
to
fighting.
have someone speaking up for the rural communities. It was really very nice.
Right. And I would say, too, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think a lot of the rural school districts have much different needs than maybe some of the more urban school districts, and maybe not as much resources to meet some of those needs. Not all of them, but I think the rural districts do a great job, but there's a lot of really unique challenges in a rural school district.
Yeah, I think she was really surprised about the need for food in our community.
That seems like a basic need, right?
Right, and so she was kind of surprised at that, I think, not realizing food issues in
Sure.
our community, and so she was taking very specific notes. So
Right.
she'll take it back to the chairs and the committees and everybody to discuss Bloomfield, and CCSD is also becoming a partner. They're just now starting.
Okay.
So, yeah, we've enjoyed that support, and we hope to continue that.
Very good. What was the reaction of your students and staff at Central Primary when
They were
a movie star shows
Yes,
up, right?
they
That
were
doesn't happen every day.
No, they were so excited, and one of the students recognized her from several of her movies.
Of course.
And so I was like, well, they're very in tune to what's going on in the world. So it was nice. And she read a book to some kids in a reading group that they go in there for support and intervention. So it was very sweet,
Right.
was it? So very, it was moving.
I bet. Well, congratulations to get that kind of spotlight, I think,
Mm-hmm.
highlighting some of the positive things, too, that have been happening at Bloomfield Schools. I'm
Yes.
sure she was there to do that, too.
Yes.
So that's wonderful. Speaking of which, we got to talk about your wrestling team, don't we?
We
How
do.
about that?
Yeah, they're state champions.
Good for
So I
them.
have 2
Congratulations.
championships under my belt as a superintendent, so that's
Okay.
kind of fun.
Very good.
And I am such a advocate for wrestling, and I was visiting with my daughter for wedding plans, so I missed the state championship celebration. So, but you know, my family's first. So
Right.
Anyway,
I think you would have been there if you weren't planning a wedding.
I would have been there. I would have
Yeah.
just celebrated with
Not too many
everybody.
things top that, but wedding planning probably is one of them.
Yeah, my daughter needed me. So anyway, we're celebrating them. They'll be recognized at our March board meeting, and Bloomfield City Council is recognizing them, and we'll be doing some celebrating for them because that is a grueling sport.
Right.
If you've ever been to a wrestling state championship, there's the backside and the front side, and the backside are the kids that have to wrestle almost twice as much to even place because they're in like the losing bracket,
To
and our
kinda
boys
climb back up, right? Yeah.
And so and then we had 2 state champions out of the front side of it, so that
Okay.
means they won every match that they went through. But the amount of wrestling that happens during that period, someone called it a meat grinder. It's just grueling for these boys and girls. We have a good girls team as well. So very proud of the young men and women that are in wrestling, and it's a neat sport because it's an individual sport, but then there's a team sport part of it too. So it's impressive. So.
Yeah, very much so. Well, congratulations, go Bobcats, for the Bloomfield wrestling team and winning that blue trophy.
Yes,
at the state level. So, and I think, was it Aztec that they had to get past to win? Who's no slouch either.
Yes, they're always tough.
Yeah.
But like I said, the backside is where you kind of win a championship, and that's how well those that loser bracket comes through the system. And our boys actually, I think they said we won by 15 points, but don't quote me on that. So last year we lost by a half a point.
Oh,
to Aztec.
so close. Okay, well then.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Well, great story. Thank you for sharing that. And again, congrats to your wrestlers. That's
Yes.
awesome. And it sounds like you've got a lot of celebrations. So if the community wants to come out, they can probably pay attention to your Bloomfield Schools Facebook page or
Right,
website,
right.
and you'll be talking about some of these events you've got planned to celebrate the
Yes.
team. So very, very good. Another thing I wanted to ask you about was some of your students took part in a Smart Money reality fair. We talked about this with our friends from the Farmington Public Library, which I think is where these pictures are taken. But this is kind of some financial literacy type of information for your students, which I think you're a big proponent of.
Yes, the new graduation requirements will require that they do take a financial literacy class, and it's about how to manage your money and have a checking account and understand what you need to do to provide for a family, and just conversations around if you have, how many children do you have, and planning for retirement. And so those are all real important things in the future for these students. And they went to I'm glad that the library had that event so
Right.
they could go and learn more.
Right. And the way it was kind of geared, as far as I remember, is that, the students would show up and they'd be assigned maybe a job, and, you make a certain amount of money a month, and out of that, you've got to figure out where you want to live. And then, guess what? You have now a couple of kids, and that's going to eat into your budget a little bit, and figuring out how to make a budget, and maybe what careers pay what type of salary, and making those types of decisions, which I think is
Right.
really smart information to have as a high schooler.
Right.
Or even a middle schooler.
And they get a sense of what it takes to raise a family, or what kind of salary with what they want, what are their goals, what would they need to make. And
Right.
so it's all informing them of decisions like whether to go to college, whether to go out and go into the trades, and or just go straight to work out of high school. It depends on what the need is. So.
Sure.
Yeah.
And a lot of the other things too that we would talk about as well, like maybe, I'm going to get an apartment in Farmington. It's a little more expensive than an apartment in Bloomfield, but I've got a job in Bloomfield, but now I have to drive back and forth to Bloomfield to go to work. So that's going to be more gas money, and all that eats into the budget. And
Yes.
and those decisions have consequences.
We all have to make those difficult decisions.
That's true. That's very true. But it looks like the kids were having a good time and learning a bit about finances and budgets, and that's never a bad thing, I think, for
No.
any of us.
No.
So, because
As you know, we all go through life, and all of us have had our hills and valleys and financial woes, I'm sure.
very true, very true. Well, I had a time in my life when if the card swiped, I just bought it, and if they didn't swipe it through, then couldn't buy it. But that's that's a whole other time. But yeah, very true.
Beans and ramen noodles.
Right, exactly.
I always think about food and how you manage your grocery bill. 'Cause,
Sure.
groceries are so expensive, and so I always watch what people are getting and see what they're managing and how they work through that. But
Right.
I think we could learn from a lot of people, especially some of the generational things, like how to stretch your food, how do you add like potatoes to hamburger meat for tacos. Stretching your food, I don't think our kids are learning that kind of thing. So I think some important things like that might be good to discuss as well.
Right. Very true. I will tell the audience a story. I was probably in my 30s when I discovered that Ziploc bags were clear, because my mother had washed them and reused them when I was young and thought that they were just cloudy kind of a frosted plastic all my life until I bought a box, and I'm like, oh, they're really clear. They're like when you buy a new one and not reuse it for 5 years.
Yes,
It's a clear thing.
That's a depression thing.
That's right.
My grandmother used to wash and clean her foil, and she saved everything and reused everything. So
we never bought a new Ziploc bag when I was a little kid. Never. We just had them.
Reused them all the time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So anyway, there you go. You mentioned the state legislature, Dr. Mizell, and I want to ask you a bit about some of the legislation that did pass already, and maybe some of the other ones that the governor is still considering, I think, that are sitting on her desk. But one of the ones that I know we've talked about several times is the graduation requirements and making some changes to that to give students, I think, a bit more maybe options to graduate. And that one did pass and was signed already by the governor, correct?
Yes, that won't go into effect until, I believe, 2025. But there we will be able. They will no longer be required to take Algebra 2 for a graduation requirement. That's where financial literacy will come into play. That they will need to take a class like that.
Okay.
And then it also opens up more options for career technical type classes or even dual credit classes. It's kind of giving them more options to take classes of interest rather than requirement.
Okay.
And so I think it's going to be a great thing for the high school graduates.
Nice. And for those seniors, I guess, are they able to maybe demonstrate some of their competencies then in a different way then? And maybe
I
they have
believe that's
now?
coming with like a portfolio or presentation. We've been kind of waiting on that for a while now.
Okay.
Right now, SAT is, they just have to actually just take the test. There's not like a cut score for that. And so the cut score was supposed to go into effect, I think, with the ninth graders last year or something. But anyway, that's a good thing too, because not everyone can score well on tests, but they actually can do well with work ethic in schools and make the grades and do okay. So there's some avenues that they can take that way as well.
Got you. So you see this as positive
Yes, very
change.
very positive for the students.
Very good. Okay. The other things that you were watching, I think the school calendar was another issue that maybe isn't resolved just yet.
Yeah, no, they were moving forward with the rule change and making it, rather than hours, they're moving it to 180 days required. And it is very much a fight with 4-day schools, school districts, and it will also impact our professional development days in the district. So we have tentative draft calendars, but we're really waiting to see what happens with that rule to make a determination what we're going to do. So we've all, the superintendents in this area have talked. We try to align our spring break and Christmas break if we can together, and we talk with the college as well. So we all try to align ourselves because we share kids, we share employees, we share people. So, so we're all kind of just waiting to see. We were supposed to hear about that last week, and I haven't heard anything yet. So, been checking my emails and waiting to see what happens.
Okay. And that's a rule, not a law necessarily. So that's coming from the public education department?
Yes. So the law is now, it was hours that they, contact hours.
Okay.
For some reason, they moved to days. And so it gets really confusing. What we did last year is we extended our school days, like my district, 15 minutes every day. And then we added on a few days to make up all the hours. And so now we're having to look at total days in school. And so it's getting more and more challenging when you put all these parameters on what we're trying to do.
Right. And you mentioned, too, that some of the other, I think, smaller school districts that do maybe the 4-day weeks, because it certainly seems like it's maybe efficient for them to heat and cool buildings only 4 days a week, not 5, and things like that, they would have to make a major change.
Yeah. For them, it's a lot of times, transportation, food, electricity. It is also a recruiting tool. Teachers like working 4 days a week, and so in some of the rural districts, they really have a hard time finding people, but that's the selling point for them. And we're hearing rumors that there's just going to be massive, retirements, people no longer teaching because they're going to take this away, just making the teacher shortage worse for a lot of districts. And so they've been fighting real hard to prevent it. I don't know if that's going to be successful or not. That doesn't necessarily impact the school districts up here,
Right.
but it will impact our professional development days. So we're kind of just on hold for
Waiting. Yeah. So, okay. So what we say in the radio business is stay tuned, which I guess is what we're doing.
That's right. We're all trying to stay tuned to what's going on.
Okay. Watch that inbox, I guess, too,
Right,
with emails
yeah.
and see. Anything else that came out of the 30-day session? It was a short session, so a lot of the bills were dealt with the budget, of course. Certainly funding for schools is certainly still
Right,
pretty strong, I think.
Right now, they're recommending a 3% raise across the board. It's not like an average; it's just 3%. And then we're hearing that, unfortunately, our insurance rates are going to go up. So that will have to be covered by the districts, which is a significant amount. It's like 16% increase. So it's
Okay.
a lot. So I've had my budget meetings with my principals and stuff, and I just said, we're on hold with the budget as well because we do have declining enrollments, and then we have these increases. So it's definitely a balancing act with managing the budgets.
Right. And the state won't send any more extra money for those insurance increases to the budget side. I guess if the employee has to pay a bit more, that 3% raise may cover some of that, you would hope?
I would think so, but according to my finance manager, she said we will have to pick up the increase probably.
Oh.
Because they have the 80%, 70%,
The split.
60% split, depending on their salaries. And so, yeah, it will hit us hard.
Gotcha. Okay. Just a few minutes remaining this morning, Dr. Mizell, and I always have to ask you about your car giveaways at the end of the school year. I know you told me this year that it's back to maybe one car for perfect attendance and one card based on GPA for your students,
Right,
correct?
right.
That's where things are.
For the high school and Charlie White Brown
Yeah.
students.
Okay. And the kids are still in the thick of it, right?
Yes,
and
they
competing
are.
and
Yeah.
staying healthy and coming to school. That's all good.
Yes, as far as I know. I haven't
Okay.
heard anything else.
Good.
That's always a fun time of the year. And we will be having our grand opening, and we'll send you an invite for the
Oh, yes. Your resource
resource
center,
hub.
right? Resource hub, pardon me.
It's coming up, I believe, I think it's March 25th, or
Okay.
28th, one or the other.
End of March. Okay. I'll be here. I was hoping it wasn't going to be during spring break when I may not be here. So.
No, I wouldn't have been here either.
Okay, well, there you go. So I will look forward to that because we've been talking about that a lot, and I
Right.
hope the community will be there too to celebrate this really great resource for Bloomfield because as you've shared with us, it's offering a lot of really cool things for your families and students in Bloomfield schools.
Right. It's for the community
Yeah.
and the students. So that's a wonderful thing that we've been able to do.
Very good. Well, Dr. Mizell, I appreciate the update this month. Thank you very much, and good luck with all your wedding plans.
Yes.
Exciting, and of course the transition, and of course we'll look forward to hearing who the school board selects to fill those big shoes that you're going to leave behind. But we'll look forward to learning about that maybe next time.
Yes, I hope so.
Okay. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
You bet. That's Dr. Kim Mizell. She is the superintendent of schools with the Bloomfield School District. My guest this morning on KSJE. Did you enjoy that podcast? We hope that you did. And if you did, share it with your friends. And if you really want to keep podcasts like this coming, please support KSJE. You can do it easily online at ksje.com.